Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're in Cleveland, in Kentucky, in Pittsburgh, in Virginia, West Virginia, or anywhere inside or outside our 4th Federal Reserve District. I'm Heidi Gartland, and I'm Chief Government and Community Relations Officer at University Hospitals in Cleveland, Ohio. I am honored to serve as the Deputy Chair of the Board of Directors of the Cleveland Fed and to be chairing the search for the Fed's next President and CEO. It is a privilege and an honor to be able to serve my community and the nation to lead this process. Today's session will provide the community with the opportunity to learn about the search of the Cleveland Fed president and to provide a transparent look into the important role and responsibilities of a Federal Reserve Bank president, how the search process works, what type of qualities and characteristics we're looking for, and to share how the community members can get involved to make candidate recommendations. Public engagement is very important in the selection process for a Federal Reserve Bank president. The individual represents me and you and our entire 4th District. And this person is at the Federal Open Markets Committee, which is an incredible opportunity where decisions are made on interest rates. And toward that end, we have posted this presidential search on a webpage on clevelandfed.org to help make this process transparent to you, the public. The page contains plenty of information about the search, including who's on the search committee, a detailed position profile, a confidential email address where you can nominate candidates. Serving as a Federal Reserve Bank president is in a unique role, and hearing from our community about the value that you place in this position will help the search committee make an informed decision. We've received several questions submitted in advance. Thank you to those of you that have done that, and we'll start with those after we've done introductions. Of course, anytime during the program, you can submit your own question in the chat feature, in the Q&A feature. We'll be grabbing those questions and answering them later on in the live stream. Let me set the stage with a short video about the selection process itself.
The Federal Reserve System, our nation's central bank, comprises 12 independent regional reserve banks across the country and the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. Each reserve bank has its own board of directors and president. The board provides important information on regional business and credit conditions in support of monetary policy making, and it oversees management of the reserve bank. The president is the chief executive officer and is responsible for all of the bank's activities, including monetary policy, bank supervision, economic research, payment services, distribution of coin and currency to financial institutions, and more. What happens when a reserve bank needs a new president? The selection process is laid out in federal law rooted in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Each reserve bank has a 9-member board with 3 kinds of directors, Class A, B, and C. The Board of Directors forms a search committee composed of its eligible Class B and Class C directors. These directors represent the public and are not affiliated with regulated banks or financial institutions. Since Class A directors are bankers, they are not permitted to take part in the selection of a reserve bank's president, nor are they allowed to sit on the search committee. Typically, the search committee works with an outside search firm to identify a diverse, national pool of candidates with an appropriate blend of leadership, knowledge, and experience. The committee also gathers public input and candidate nominations during the search. Qualified candidates might come from higher education, nonprofits, financial institutions, or other businesses, or from within the Federal Reserve System itself. One trait they all share is a desire to serve the public. After gathering stakeholder input, interviewing candidates and evaluating their qualifications, the search committee forwards the top candidates to the Board of Governors in Washington for a review that includes one-on-one meetings with each governor. Then, the Reserve Bank's eligible Class B and C directors, the non-bank directors, with sign-off from the Board of Governors, select the new Reserve Bank president. The new president then joins their Federal Reserve System colleagues in promoting price stability and maximum employment, serving the American people as part of our nation's central bank.
What an incredibly fascinating process. The Board of Directors this fall appointed a presidential search committee. And those committee members include the 5 Class B and C directors. And I'm very pleased to be joined by one of my fellow directors, Jackie Gamblin, on this panel today. Jackie Gamblin is the Chief Executive Officer of JYG Innovations of Dayton in Ohio, and a Class B member of our board of Federal Reserve Board of Cleveland. Our other panelist is John Harpole with Spencer Stuart. This is the executive search firm that we have hired to manage the search. Spencer Stuart is a trusted partner to us, and this is a firm amongst many that have done several other recent presidential searches. And supporting today's conversation is Margie McGowan Wright. Margie Wright-McGowan. Sorry about that, Margie.
All right, my husband won't care.
Okay, good. Executive Vice President and Human Resource Officer at the Cleveland Fed. She will facilitate our discussion today as Jackie, John, and I address questions that we've received from you, the community.
Thank you, Heidi, and thanks for that wonderful opening and setting the stage for our conversation today. It's a pleasure and an honor to support you and the entire search committee in this important process, which starts me off with my first question. Why is this search so important? Maybe you can kick us off, Heidi.
Sure. Well, we certainly recognize that this search is an incredible opportunity. The job of a Federal Reserve Bank president is very important. It sets monetary policy for our entire country. And there are only 12 of these positions in our country. And these positions do not come open very often. The importance of this role is why we are running a national search. And we want to source a diverse set of candidates. The Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland has 1,000 employees and carries out critical functions for the American public. These include bank supervision, economic research, circulation of cash, community development outreach, and support of the U.S. Treasury. The President sets the tone and standard for all employees who work on your behalf at the public. The Cleveland Fed President and its President is an important regional resource. It means that we have a seat at the table. And that is important. The Cleveland Fed President makes sure that economic concerns of the people who live in Ohio, parts of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky are considered and represented on a national level. Our search takes into consideration public feedback, and today's session will help answer questions of those of you, and we invite the community members to share candidate recommendations. I'll now turn it over to my fellow committee member, Jackie.
Thank you, Heidi. Let me start by emphasizing that the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland's employees are a part of this community and invested in its success. The bank provides an important public service through its research and community development efforts. On the board of directors, I am a Class B director representing the information technology sector. I'm proud to call Ohio home. I've lived in the Dayton area since the first grade, and my father's military career actually brought us to Ohio, where he retired from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So I am personally and professionally invested in the strength of the 4th District and know that finding the right person to lead the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland is an honor and an opportunity to impact the lives of every American. It's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. But we need the community's help. Your recommendations and feedback are important to us. And we hope that today is a good example of how we're going to fulfill that commitment with the town hall. And we're committed to conducting a search that is robust, fair, transparent, and inclusive. So thank you for joining us today. And again, we encourage you to go to our website, clevelandfed.org, to share your feedback and recommendations.
Thank you so much, Heidi and Jackie, and for sharing your own personal insights. That really gives us some extra information. So I'm going to switch now to the qualifications of the job. And I'm going to start with you, Jackie. What qualifications is the committee looking for in economics and monetary policy making?
Thank you, Margie. First, I'd like to say that it's not required that the president have a PhD in economics, but we're looking for someone who really understands monetary policy. Monetary policy affects us all. It affects the cost of your car, your house, your groceries, and so many other things. We want someone that understands the impact of decisions made by Federal Reserve presidents that show up in our daily life. Equally, one of the most important parts of the job is representing the 4th District at the FOMC table. Again, this is where interest rate decisions are made to keep our economy on track. The president needs to be conversant in economic research. They need to be able to gather insightful economic intelligence across all communities and sectors in our district. Transparency and credibility are also important since the president serves as the primary public figure that represents the bank. They need to be able to share their insights as an independent thinker at meetings of the FOMC, as well as when they're speaking publicly.
Thanks, Jackie. That's a lot of technical information, and thanks for breaking it down so that we understand it a little easier. So Heidi, I'm going to turn to you. Your background in community outreach is especially informative for this search committee. Can you share with us the ideal knowledge and experience the search committee is looking for in the areas of communication and relationship building?
Wonderful. So this position requires somebody that is a strong communicator with a distinct voice. This person needs to be compelling in their delivery, both at the FOMC as well as with the public that we serve in the 4th District. A Reserve Bank president has a very powerful megaphone. The person's views are widely in demand, both in financial media and financial markets. But not only does the president need to be able to understand macroeconomics and monetary policy, they need the ability to communicate complex economic ideas to a broader audience. We're looking for someone who can communicate clearly what the Fed's actions mean for you and me on Main Street. The president needs and must be a dynamic speaker who meets with, and this is part of the relationship part, meets with those in the district, the top tier financial media regularly as well. And this is a role to be able to explain the Fed actions and the economy. Current Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester has set a high bar in this area. Like President Mester, all Reserve Bank president candidates need to demonstrate that they are skilled in building trust, productive partnerships, and communication that is collaborative. The president spends ample amount of time cooperating, communicating, and collaborating productively with the bank board of directors, with folks like Jackie and I, other Reserve Bank presidents, fellow members of the FOMC, the Board of Governors, and of course, the U.S. Department of Treasury. They need to actively listen. That's a really important, it's not just about talking, it's also about listening, to engage with industry and community leaders to understand economic conditions across our district's banks. And here's an important piece, to really be able to demystify the Fed and monetary policy. And lastly, to build public trust.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and thanks for demystifying that for us and for highlighting the high bar that Dr. Mester has set. So I'm going to ask both of you about what economic conditions and environment, specifically in the 4th District, that the president will have to understand and represent now at the national level. So Heidi, I'm going to start with you and then ask Jackie for you to follow up.
Well, first of all, I have to say the 4th District is an amazing place to live and to work. The 4th District composes Ohio, Pennsylvania, Eastern Kentucky, Northern Panhandle of West Virginia. And I think we would all agree this is a beautiful place to live and to work and offers an amazing balance of both cities and countryside. The territory contains a range of industries as well, from manufacturing and medicine to advanced technology. Across a variety of communities, including older industrial cities, growing suburbs, as well as rural Appalachian areas. And one of the hallmarks of the 4th District is the low cost of living and a strong logistical infrastructure. This makes it a great place to put down roots, to raise a family, or to nurture or grow a business. In every corner of our region, you'll find diverse people with different ethnicities, races, thoughts, and approaches and beliefs. There are talented individuals in our district who want to participate fully in the economy. And that means the president must understand what's helping them do that, but also what are the barriers to their success. At the Cleveland Fed, the incoming president will have a unique opportunity, and this is part of the relationship part, to travel our district and speak with community members and learn firsthand from them what's happening on Main Street. This contributes to the bank's regional analysis work and community development research that our bank in the Cleveland 4th District is known for in the area of small business, affordable housing, and workforce development. Jackie, I bet you have a point of view on this.
I do, and I always like to keep my eye on the technology sector, and there have been some major investments in the 4th District's manufacturing sector with expansions in advanced technology production, including computer chips and cutting-edge green energy. It will be important for the President to be familiar and inquisitive about these topics. I mentioned earlier that I'm in the IT business, and part of my job as a director is to inform the President about trends in the IT sector, such as how tight the labor market is, what's going on with pricing, or even areas such as cybersecurity. The labor market insight is critical to supporting the Fed and fulfilling what's called the dual mandate. The Federal Reserve System is charged with pursuing the economic goals of maximum employment and price stability. It does this by using a variety of policy tools to manage financial conditions, which is known as conducting monetary policy. Price stability means ensuring that inflation remains low and stable over the long run. The Fed has been hard at work on this particular mandate. Maximum employment varies over time with business conditions, demographics, labor market regulations, and other factors. It can be thought of as the highest level of employment that the economy can sustain over time. Pursuing these two complementary goals takes a lot of data and information from a wide variety of sources. Each president is charged with collecting data and information in their respective districts to create the most informed picture for decision making. So the bank president must be able to take it all in, take this information, synthesize it into a narrative so that they can share that at the FOMC table. It's a challenging job, but it's a vital one.
Thank you so much. And there's nothing more fun than talking about how great the 4th District is. So John, perfect segue, welcome. Thank you for your partnership and Spencer Stuart's partnership. I'm going to shift now to talk about logistics and the information that people probably wonder about how the process works. So could you share with our audience a typical timeline, what that looks like, and how your firm supports the search committee in conducting a wide, diverse, and inclusive search for qualified candidates?
Thank you very much, Margie. So we are honored to have the opportunity to work with the 4th Reserve District. What our role is in supporting the search committee is to extend its reach to a national pool. Spencer Stuart has been in this business for over 70 years, and as a result, we have a very strong set of relationship access and information to some of the highest caliber scholars, public policy experts, and business leaders in the country. That is what we will bring and expand the list of prospects. But that's not all. We also wanted to make sure that in this process, we have assured you, and this town hall, other convenings, are part of making sure that as many types of leaders as possible can be considered by the search committee so there's the best possible outcome. That both includes diversity as well as includes people who are really truly in tune with the needs of the 4th Reserve District. To that end, that's a lot. But to that end, there's no search timeline. You know, the search committee and the board will move within the guidelines of the Federal Reserve Act, as laid out earlier in our video, to find the best candidate, and will take the time it takes to make sure that the maximal number of stones are overturned and that the best qualified people to lead are put forward. We need your partnership in this effort. Therefore, I refer all of you to the clevelandfed.org, where you'll find not only the presidential search description, but you will also find access to a confidential webpage which you can use to either nominate or pass on to somebody who has access to leaders and encourage them to apply.
Thank you. And I really appreciate, and I'm sure our audience does, you breaking that all down for us. So you have heard Jackie and Heidi talk about how important integrity and commitment to public service is in the new CEO and president. So can you give an overview of the restrictions that all candidates will be held to as a part of this search?
Absolutely. So there are two aspects of this. Within the search process, there are extensive financial disclosure and ethical compliance guidelines that the successful candidate will have to comply with. These are non-trivial. The financial disclosure guidelines encompass not just the candidates themselves, but their immediate families. So it takes a really significant commitment to and really willingness to serve, because there will be non-material, but actually I should say quite material sacrifices for some to get in this process. And that should give you some reassurance of the type of people who are really mission-oriented for a role of this import. Once the successful candidate is finally approved by the directors and becomes the next president and CEO of the 4th Reserve District, the person will be a member of the Open Market Committee. That itself requires an even higher level of security standing, given the sensitive nature of the role. So it's important to point out that in order to comply, that one of the key requirements is please submit only U.S. citizens. That's just part of the ongoing security concerns. The Fed is very sensitive to the fact that in order to serve the 4th District and the nation, there has to be absolute confidence in the motivations, intentions, and the ethics of its leaders.
Thanks, John. Very helpful. So Jackie, you are a proud business owner in the 4th District. So what types of qualities and capabilities will you be looking for in the next president who will represent the economic interests of the community in the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee?
Well, first, I think the president must command respect and credibility from policymakers. And what this looks like to me is someone with a strong, practical understanding of data, someone who's articulate and informed on a broad range of economic policy and banking issues, and also someone who's very familiar with the nation's monetary policy, financial, and payment systems. So I think Heidi earlier emphasized the importance of strong communication skills, and I'll build a little bit on that. I think the president must be a persuasive participant in rigorous policy deliberations. They have to anticipate key issues and risks and provide fresh insights that are objective, pragmatic, and as an independent thinker. Intellectual curiosity and a willingness to engage within the community is also important. The Cleveland Fed president routinely talks with people who live and work in our district. Those relationships help the Fed to learn about the economic concerns and conditions on the ground in real time. We'd like to say it's a way to learn the story that data alone doesn't tell. This desire to learn needs to include familiarity or the ability to become familiar with the technological evolution in financial services and how to best leverage data and technology. And finally, I believe they must be dedicated to creating a strategy and a vision that ensures the Cleveland Fed and the Federal Reserve System remains focused on discussions and decision-making around policies that serve the public interest.
Thanks, Jackie. I appreciate that and sharing your own personal perspective. So Heidi, you mentioned earlier that the Cleveland Fed has about 1,000 employees. As you can imagine, one of the major interests from people is what type of leader are we going to bring in? And specifically, what are the leadership qualities that you're looking for in the next elected president? So can you share what you're looking for in candidates when it comes to leading people?
Sure, thanks, Margie. The bank is an organization that, as you can tell, is incredibly complex and challenging and serves sensitive responsibilities for our economy. I'll be looking for a leader that holds themselves to the highest standards and models that for all of our 1,000 employees. And this is a person that is going to build our team across the entire district. It's important to understand that this is going to be a person who has the responsibility that is going to be vast in team leadership as well as monetary policy. The president must be dedicated to talent development and fostering teamwork across our bank. They must be able to identify, recruit, and develop a strong set of diverse leaders that are going to lead our organization. I'll also be asking candidates about the types of teams that they have led and built and their approach to teamwork. We're looking for a leader that is known for being generous as well with their own time and certainly respectful of others. I'm also looking for a good listener, and because that sets an important tone for our employees. But they also need to have a strong sense of purpose and priorities, high emotional intelligence, and a self-awareness, because they serve the public, and that public must know that our bank is there for them, and that inspires our employees to do the same.
Thanks, Heidi, and that's all music to my ears as a bank employee, so thanks for sharing that. So John, this is a really big job. How can the audience help participate in the search for qualified candidates?
Well, one of the key things to do is to refer to the presidential webpage at presidentialsearch@clevelandfed.org. On that webpage, you'll find a separate, dedicated confidential inbox, which you can either submit nominations to yourself, or which we encourage you to pass along to leaders in your community, where they can submit names, which will be reviewed confidentially. And that's a way for a broad group to participate, and again, it enriches our pool, and we're very grateful for your participation.
Thanks, John. So I'm going to turn it back to Jackie. A question came in about the president's first 100 days and what that might look like. Can you share your thoughts on this from a director's perspective?
Well, we all know how important those first 100 days are. And I think it's important that whether the president is someone who's external or internal, that they hit the road. They need to get out and meet the people in our community. They need to travel within our district, because those are the people they're representing at the FOMC table. But just as important, as you just mentioned earlier, Margie, they need to meet the Cleveland Fed employees. They need to introduce themselves and learn about how work really gets done at the bank. The Cleveland Fed has a diverse and inclusive culture, and I'm sure the employees are going to welcome our new president with open arms. And I know they want to get to know them, and they also want to share what they're doing for the bank. So finally, I would just say on behalf of the people on behalf of the public, they must approach all of these activities, as Heidi stated earlier, with an open mind and a listening ear.
They'll be pretty busy the first 100 days. Thanks, Jackie. All right, Heidi, as the search chair, I've reserved the last advanced question for you, and then we'll go into open Q&A. What makes this job exciting? And if a candidate asks, why would you choose this job over another job?
Well, I would just say, simply put, there's nothing like a president of a Federal Reserve Bank. I mean, there are only 12 of these positions in the entire country. It is an incredibly intellectually stimulating role. And this individual will help develop and advance the vision and strategy for the Cleveland Fed, and more broadly, the Federal Reserve System. For qualified leaders who seek to serve the public, and this is a public service job, this job will deliver in spades back to them. The President supports every American by working to respond to ongoing changes in the economy with the effective monetary policy and ensuring the strength of the country's financial system.
Thanks, Heidi. All right, so now I'm going to remind everyone to send in or submit questions. We have a couple questions that have come in during the course of the panel. So I'm going to start first, Heidi, with you. So the question is, what has the input from the Board of Governors been about this position?
So we have very prescribed rules by the Board of Governors and for our bank, and we will follow those. Those are set out in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and simply put, that's how we're going to do this search.
Great. I like a simple answer. Thank you for that. All right, another question came in. I'm going to give this to you, Jackie. So which matters more in this search? A strong reputation for inflation fighting, banking supervision, payments, or DEI, which represents diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I'd like to say all of those things are important. I mean, I don't think there's any one that's more important than another. But I would state that whoever the leader is needs to be an inclusive leader. They need to have someone who attracts top talent, because we have a huge mission ahead of us. So it's so important that they're able to really get people and bring the best out of people. And I think that we need that in order to fulfill that dual mandate I talked about earlier. You know, maximum employment, price stability. We need to have the best and brightest minds to be able to use all the tools available to move the mission forward.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I have a question that came in that I'm going to start with Heidi, and then Heidi, I think maybe we'll bounce it to you, Jackie, for follow-up. Okay. So what are the attributes or areas of focus that will be required by the new president that differ from the focus of the current president? Heidi, you want to start?
Sure. Well, I will just say that we're very fortunate to have Dr. Mester leading our our bank. This search, however, is going to develop a whole set of work and to develop somebody who's going to really think about the stability of our financial system. We certainly are going to need somebody that can deal with complex organizations and leading that, to be that voice at that table of the FOMC, and to really embody the values that our bank holds dearly. And those are accountability, excellence, inclusion, innovation, integrity, and service. And we'll have a leader that can really both lead and be a communicator and a collaborator, because it's not just about the 4th District, it's about the entire country's monetary policy.
So true. Thank you. Thanks, Heidi. Jackie, anything you'd want to add?
Heidi, you really summed it up well, and I think John stating, the presence of why we're using a national search firm to make sure we have a broad net to be able to attract that top person to this job, because we want someone who's a strong leader. Mm-hmm. They have to really be focused on performance. They have to be able to engage within our community. And as I mentioned earlier, develop talent. Everything is moving fast with technology being introduced into every sector of our community. So we really need that leader who can lead the way and really take us to the next step in our future.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Build on the current success of the bank.
Absolutely.
So we have a question that just came in that, John, I'm going to send your way. So Cleveland is a voting member of the FOMC in 2024. Does that change due to the search?
No. To be very simple. So Cleveland actually is in a unique role. Cleveland has votes with a greater frequency along with Chicago than the other reserve banks, with the exception of New York. That makes this a particularly important and attractive seat on the FOMC. That said, the president, when they're selected and when they're finally seated, if there's an FOMC meeting, they will seamlessly move into that seat. The FOMC does not determine this process. We will make sure that the search committee and the board will make sure that this person is well-versed, well-capable. There's a very strong research capability here, and they will seamlessly vote, as is their obligation as president and CEO.
Great, thanks, John. Thanks for that insight. Great question. So we had another question come in. I'm going to start with Heidi, and then I'm sure Jackie will jump on. So when visiting communities throughout the 4th District, what levels of community will they, I'm assuming that's the new president, be meeting with? For example, just economic, financial, and business leaders, or will they be meeting with grassroots community members as well?
Well, I'm going to answer that in a couple ways. Number one, our president will be out in the district, and they'll meet with folks from Main Street and from, financial institutions. We are also incredibly lucky. We have a business advisory council and we have a community advisory council. I actually was on the community advisory council, and I got to watch firsthand across the 4th District members that are grassroots members that represent every walk of our district come to that, and we actually did field visits out into the district, and that is a mechanism that our president and our research team and our community development organization look at and really digest when our monetary policy votes are being made.
Great, thanks, Heidi. Jackie, anything you'd want to add?
I would just add that we want a leader who's accessible, someone who really makes themselves available to the community, to employees. So it's not just meeting with certain leaders and certain institutions. It really is those grassroots citizens who they're representing. They're representing all citizens. So yes, they definitely will be out in the community.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So, John, I'm gonna punt this to you.
Sure.
How does the search committee identify and evaluate any potential conflicts of interest for a candidate?
That's an interesting question. One of the things that we spend a lot of time on is, as we mentioned up front, if we have a very high potential candidate, before they interview with the B and C directors, and there will be a process of really going from this broad, expansive pool to qualifying to the highest potential group. We will make sure that they have a thorough introduction to the ethics guidelines. That person will also work with our general counsel. And as we progress through the process, there will be multiple steps in developing clarity and transparency into their potential areas of financial conflict and we'll have adequate time to resolve them as possible. Furthermore, each individual that gets into this process goes through an independent background check, and the successful candidate will go through additional checks for their backgrounds as well. So there's a multi-layered approach to vetting conflicts and rooting out conflicts, again, because the integrity of the system and the integrity of the 4th Reserve District, and really in service of the public, is what trumps everything else.
Great, thank you so much. And Heidi, I'm gonna send this one to you that just came in. Will there be a period of transition? And if so, what does this look like? And I'm assuming that's between Dr. Muster and the new president.
Well, obviously, when we find the right candidate, we will have the knowledge of what that date is. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, if there may be a transition and there may not. There is a point of time that Dr. Muster does have to transition out of her position. And ideally, if we're able to find the right candidate, there will be a transition period. But again, we don't know that.
Right.
We're just at the beginning stages.
Thank you. Very transparent, and thank you for that. So I'm going to now send this over to John, since Spencer Stuart is right in the language. How does an outside firm like Spencer Stuart complement the search committee? Are candidates from other presidential searches considered? And then, of course, Jackie or Heidi, if you want to build on John's answer as well. John,
Sure. So Spencer Stuart, we're very fortunate in that our firm's been around for quite a long time. We've been engaged in multiple projects across the Federal Reserve System, as well as across other government-sponsored entities, as well as extensive work in the financial services sector and in academia. So as a result, we have a very broad scope of research, data, information on very, very high-profile leaders across the country, and really, frankly, across the world. We're in 65 offices worldwide. So part of that is bringing that scope of reach and delivering that confidentially to the B&C directors. So that basically provides a degree of leverage that goes beyond sort of individual networks and knowledge. That hopefully that will enrich the pool and again further foster the goals of having as inclusive and as diverse a process as possible. Are candidates from other presidential searches considered? Absolutely. There's no ring fencing around. If somebody was a candidate in a recent search, such as in Boston or as in Kansas City or Chicago, you know, if they were a candidate in another search and they did not succeed, they were still probably a very, very high caliber person. And certainly if they continue to have interest in the Federal Reserve, they will be known to us either through their self-nomination or through research that we may have done in support of the committee. And they will be encouraged to apply if they haven't already nominated themselves. And there's no bias against them from that end.
Thanks, John. Yeah. Heidi, anything you'd add to that?
No, I'm just, we want the best candidates to apply, and whether they've applied to other searches, that is wonderful. But we'll take any candidate that meets our qualifications.
Excellent, thank you. There have been great questions from the community and a fascinating conversation. And as we near the end of our program, I'd like to invite everyone to share their final thoughts. And so, John, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Go to Jackie, and then we'll have Heidi wrap us up.
Awesome. Well, first of all, it's a real honor to be here. You know, I will say, you know, my family's ties to this district and to East Cleveland go way back to the First World War. Everyone on the Spencer Stuart consulting team has deep personal ties to this district, and frankly, as a result, great affection for this district. We have a deep commitment to our nation as well, and we are hoping and really optimistic of finding a superb range of choices for the search committee to choose from. So we're very much honored and enthusiastic about being here, so thank you.
Thanks, John. Jackie?
I would just like to share that, again, it's a privilege to be in this position. It's a privilege to serve on this board. And we all understand the importance of this decision. And I want to thank each of you, number one, for taking the time to attend today, and number two, for submitting the questions. You know, these allow us to consider to make sure that we're covering every aspect of this search to make sure, as Heidi said, we get the best possible candidate that we can find. So again, just thank you for your time, and we look forward to finding that candidate and helping them serve our community.
And I guess I would just like to close out by saying I really hope this town hall has helped to answer your questions, inspired you to submit candidate names to go out and help us find the best and brightest to fill this amazing opportunity in the 4th District. You know, these bank presidents, as I said, don't come around very often. This will be our 12th president in our entire 110-year history of this bank. So it is a real important role for us, and as the chair of the search committee, I want you to know that we are all committed to making sure that we find an incredible match for our bank. I want to thank you for tuning in. It has certainly been an honor to host you all and for our community. And I will just remind you again, I know we've said this many times, please visit clevelandfed.org/presidential search for more information. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope that you give us candidate recommendations, and we are here to answer any additional questions that we didn't answer today. Please put them in, and we will make sure that we get them on our website. So thank you very much.